The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
May the circle be open but unbroken. May the peace of the goddess be ever in your heart. Merry meet and merry part, and merry meet again. May the circle be open but unbroken. May the peace of the goddess be ever in your heart. Merry meet and merry part, and merry meet again.
Welcome to Stirring the Cauldron on the Para X Radio Network. And now, here's your host, Marla Brooks.
Merry meet everybody, and welcome to the show here on Para X Radio. My guest tonight is author and artist Judy Mastrangelo, and she does art prints and murals and licenses her wide variety of artwork in many different markets. She does artwork for inspirational decks, and she's also written and illustrated several books. And tonight we're going to be talking about one of her books called Enchanted Fairy Tales. And we're also going to be talking about a very lovely oracle deck called Inspirational Visions. So we've got a lot to talk about, and Judy, come on in. How are you?
Hello, Marla. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh,
I'm honored.
I'm just sitting here looking at your pictures and smiling. I mean, really, really neat. And we'll get to all of that. But, as I mentioned a minute ago, we've got a couple of really good things coming up to talk about. But I don't think anyone is too old for fairy tales or too curious or too curious not to ignore the draw of an oracle deck. But so before we jump into those, you said in your bio that you've been painting all of your life. So when were you first introduced to art and pick up your first brush?
Well, let's say I started off with crayons. And my parents introduced me to art, and my mother said I was born with a paintbrush in my mouth. But I just enjoy it so much, and it's actually my main talent. I would love to do other things, but I just don't have the capacity. But I've ever since I was a little girl, and then I just developed my talent as I grew older. And I learned a lot from great artists of the past and present. They're my main teachers, and it's been an inspiration for me throughout my whole life to study great artists, and I meet more and more when I do research, and it's just very exciting. It's a wonderful study to, and I recommend it to anybody, just to study and look around for wonderful art that you really love. And unfortunately, the graphic arts are called art, but I think there's so many kinds of art: music, literature, drama, and dance, and music, of course. So it's not fair just for the graphic arts to be called art. So I just wanted to mention that.
Mm-hmm. There are all types of arts. I mean, we're doing an art form right now, talking to on the radio.
Absolutely.
So,
even gardening and baking and the art of medicine. There's all kinds of art forms.
Yeah, we're and it's funny because some people will say, "Well, I'm just not interested in art," right? Because I don't know what they think. I mean, they think maybe all art is in an art museum and it's kind of stuffy, right, and whatever. But if anybody that says they're not interested in art, they always have pictures around and favorite pictures and stuff, and it's just kind of like, no, you just not paying attention. Yes, you like art, but we're all kind of subjective, everybody has their own likes, in art. Some like Art Deco, some like Rembrandt, some like Dolly, it's all over the place, and we can't like it all, but we sure as hell always have something that we like.
The important thing is to find something that you really love, and that's what's so wonderful about all the art forms, including music and literature, everything. Just it makes life so much more enjoyable to have art all around you. It's very inspiring.
Yeah, of any kind. I mean, even finger painting could be, really good too.
Oh yeah, that was my beginning art.
I think
all over the walls.
And so they put a brush in your hand and gave you an easel and a canvas and said, no, this is where you put the paint, right?
Right.
I also like that you explained that you create magical worlds on blank canvases with the swish of your magic wand, brushes, and paints. So, do you believe in magic?
Well, of course. I'm not a practicer of magic specifically, but I think all of life is magical. The fact that we're alive is amazing, beautiful, and magical. So to me, the most magical things that a human being can do is create art. And as I said, it's all the fine arts, and then there's other kinds of art like cooking, medicine, home repair, gardening, farming, anything. As long as you put your heart and soul into it, can be great art.
Yeah. And, you and I were talking about magic as an art, the art of magic, because what you do is very magical.
Right, that's true. And I find that if I do something as realistically as I can, even if it's a fantasy picture, it can be very believable. So that's why I've studied the techniques of art throughout my life in order to make something look realistic, such as I studied the theories of color and how to make light and shadow and make things look realistic. And I've studied anatomy. And by perfecting, well, I'm not perfect at it, by trying to perfect these things, I can create a realistic fantasy world, which fantasy is my favorite thing to paint. Mm-hmm. So, so I'm inspired by a lot of things, great artists of the past and present, and I'm a film buff, and I just love films, and to me films are very inspiring also, like The Hobbit and The Wizard of Oz and the early Disney and Harry Potter movies. They're all just fascinating to me, and the backgrounds and the characters. So it's a wonderful world.
Yeah, it is. And, speaking of magic, you kind of have an interesting process before you begin a work. You daydream about your paintings for a while and before you put them on canvas, and you call it mind painting. Let's talk a little bit about that, because I think that's very magical.
Right. Well, that is a term I use, but actually the method is something that I think artists throughout time have used. If you just close your eyes, you can imagine a scene, or you might hear music, or just closing your eyes and relaxing, you might think of a story. And I think this method throughout ages have inspired artists to create original works of art. And as I mentioned, I'm inspired by great literature and other great artists, particularly the Renaissance artists, and like Da Vinci and Botticelli, and then the the golden age of illustration artists, my favorite being Maxfield Parrish. I love many artists, but and if I go into literature, I might think of a story such as the Wizard of Oz, and I close my eyes and I create a mind painting of it, and I can see different scenes, and then I might want to paint it, and I might do a mind painting of myself. For instance, I'll picture myself not with all the warts and wrinkles or whatever I am. I try to picture myself in perfection, and in that way I can even try my best to live up to my ideal self that I paint as a mind painting. And there's all kinds of things you could do as a mind painting, and it's sort of just daydreaming, and you find yourself going into a fantastic magical realm that's very exciting. And some of us feel that fantasy is just for children, but it's not true. We all have the inner child in us, and I think in order to be a joyful person, it's wonderful to bring the inner child out. Probably we might discover hidden dreams that we've buried as we grow older. And I think if we discover and rediscover these hidden dreams and desires and imaginations that we had from childhood, it is an extremely exciting thing, and it's a very inspiring thing to do.
And it's a necessary thing to do, because I think it takes us back to a kinder, gentler time, When I first got my Kindle a long time ago, they had, here, get a Kindle and you get to have something for free. Pick it out, and they gave you a whole list of stuff. And the first thing that I put on was Grimm's Fairy Tales.
Right. And some of them are grim. Absolutely.
Yes, they are. I know. Yeah. And I love the fact that the ones that Walt Disney did into movies took away all that, most of the grim stuff out of there, and cleaned them up a little bit. But those tales were absolutely named the right thing.
Fascinating. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what themes do you enjoy painting the most?
Well, fantasy is some of my favorite. And as I mentioned, great literature is very inspiring to me. And fantasy movies, as I said, such as The Hobbit or The Ring by Tolkien, and the books by Rowling, the Harry Potter movies, and also the art of dance is very inspiring. I love to watch ballet and listen to music, and when I close my eyes, I can picture a ballet in my mind. And these are things that people can develop. They probably have abilities to do things like this, but they just haven't tried it. And I think everybody has talents on their own that they would be delighted to discover. And one of my favorite fantasy themes is that I love to paint is the world of fairies. And in my book, Enchanted Fairy Tales, that's one of the stories I chose, A Midsummer Night's Dream by Shakespeare. There are so many delightful creatures in it, such as mischievous Puck, the king and queen of fairyland, Oberon and Titania, and all their elves and fairies. And it's such a delightful story. So, but fairy tales, yes, very wonderful. And I also love to paint children and animals and gods and goddesses, all kinds of things.
Yeah, there were a ton of things, not only was I looking at some of the pictures that you sent, but also the pictures on the Oracle deck, which we'll get to in the next half hour.
Yeah.
They're very diverse. It's not like you're a one-trick pony and you only paint a certain thing. Like there are artists that no matter what they paint, the subjects have huge eyes. That's what they're known
Right.
for.
Yes.
And so, but yours, they run the gamut. I mean, fairy tales and stories, and I saw something about the Wizard of Oz in there, and the gingerbread, the witch, and Hansel and Gretel thing. I mean, so many different things. And then there's also some spirituality in there too. So,
Yes.
yeah, I mean, whatever you're seeing in your head, somebody's feeding it to you really, really well. The muse, the muse is right there for you.
I just wanted to mention one thing briefly.
Yeah.
I've had a development through my life. When I was younger, I went through a sort of morose period, and my colors were dark and my themes were dark. And I love the German expressionists, and I went through an abstract period. And I just then I developed. I'm not saying it's better what I'm into now, but to my mind, it's more cheerful and joyful. I just became more joyful, and my colors when I found Monet, a delightful French impressionist, the colors were more pastel and bright and color, and I won't say colorful. I mean, there's all kinds of colors, but I've never lost the love for those type of colors. They've stayed with me, and so I, my whole life I've been changing. I'm not saying it's always for the good, but it's different.
Well, we evolve, and it doesn't mean that
Absolutely.
we don't necessarily lose anything. It's always with us, and it just sometimes it rears up its head and says, "Hey, remember me?" And then other times you go on to something else. But being that diverse, that's really wonderful. So let's talk a little bit about Enchanted Fairy Tales. I mean, how did that project come to be?
Well, I've always loved fairy tales, and when I've been painting a series of fairy tales for several years, and then I came in touch with a publishing company called TSL Publications, and they said, "Why don't you try a book of fairy tales?" So what I did was I got some of my favorite illustrations together, and I adapted the stories by famous authors such as Sleeping Beauty with Perrault and the Wizard of Oz, and Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan, Hansel and Gretel, and I wrote them I adapted them. I didn't update them. They're in the classic stories, but then I just put them all together, and I think it turned out well. For me, it was a lot of fun, and hopefully people will enjoy them too. But whatever I do, I enjoy. I try not to. I have throughout life done art commissions, but now I'm more on my own, and I paint what I love, and I license my work to different. I even license it to for people for home decor, prints, all kinds of things.
Wow.
But I enjoy what I do, and that's the important thing. I mean, I don't paint things that I dislike. So.
Well, they probably wouldn't come out very well if you tried.
Right.
But, when you're saying that, and I'm envisioning, somebody buying several prints from a particular fairy tale and then putting it up, especially maybe in a child's room or something, although I could see it, a few things like that in my room. But
sure.
I mean, there's so many ways to do it and to use it. Okay, so I'm going to put you on the spot, not a bad spot. With all the fairy tales, so you picked the ones that you particularly liked, right? to put in the book?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have a particular favorite? It's like asking a mother how much they love their kids.
Yes, Midsummer Night's Dream. Yeah, I, as I said, I love fairies, and another particular one that I really developed was Hansel and Gretel, and I feel all these stories that I've chosen, they've been created by cultures worldwide through the ages, and some of them are very symbolic. Like Sleeping Beauty represents the sleep of a princess of the flower realm in winter, and when her entire kingdom sleeps, and then she's awakened by the kiss of true love in springtime. All the stories have a symbolic meaning. Hansel and Gretel, I sort of used there's an opera, Hansel and Gretel, which was written by Engelbert Humperdinck, which he's not the pop singer.
Right.
No, this is a German composer.
Yes.
And his sister wrote the libretto. And they added several new aspects to it, when they added a sandman where he put the children to sleep, and they had a vision of heavenly angels, 14 angels, and it is a really magnificent part of the opera. And but I used the version that was done in the opera, and I found that was something that I always wanted to do because it's one of my favorite operas too. But I really love all of the stories that are in the book. Even the reluctant dragon is like a peaceful dragon. He doesn't want to fight, and
I'm looking at that one right now. I'm just going through the book, and I realized that there were a few that I never heard of, and I did not know about the reluctant dragon.
Oh yeah, it's a real fun one. And the Velveteen Rabbit, I love rabbits, and it's a very tender story of how a toy rabbit becomes real because he's so loved by the little boy. He's thrown out, but he becomes real because a fairy from the forest she saves him and makes him a real rabbit, and it's just a lovely story. And then one is very tragic, Orpheus and Eurydice. It's how Eurydice, Orpheus's love, is she dies from a bite, a poisonous bite, and he has to go to the underworld to try to rescue her. And of course, it doesn't work out, but it's the anguish that many of us have felt when we wish we could rescue our loved ones from the world beyond. And then there's comical ones, which in the beginning it's not really comical, but the Frog Prince. He's a character frog who teaches a spoiled princess that humility, and he teaches her to love him. And it turns out, of course, he's a handsome prince. But there's some really delightful stories in there, so I think people will enjoy it.
I think so too, because I started smiling when I started to look at it, and the artwork on them all, I mean, it's amazing. And here's the other thing. First, I saw The Wizard of Oz, and then I'm looking at, Peter Pan and a couple of the others. And I don't know that people would realize in this day and age that those were actually fairy tales in the beginning.
Right.
And now they're movies and plays and everything else, but you just don't think of it as that. I mean, yes, there's the books, but I don't know, sometimes it just kind of made me think that, these were fairy tales. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, the film didn't come first. Yeah.
And so
But
how did you choose? I mean, so many to choose from. Um, I mean, did they whistle at you? Did you just kind of go, "Oh my God, this one I need"?
well, I just found them. They sort of followed me throughout life. And I love the Greek myths, and I chose the three graces.
Mm-hmm.
And the, But as I said, the Midsummer Night's Dream has so much in it, and so I put the most pictures in the book from Midsummer Night's Dream. One of my favorites is Titania cuddling up to Bottom. And all her fairies are all around her, and she tells them to feed him all kinds of goodies, dewberries and purple grapes, green figs and mulberries, and they're decorating him with roses, and it's really fun. And of course there's the mixed up lovers that Puck is told by Oberon to put a magic dewdrop in the lover's eyes, and also in Titania's eyes, because Oberon, the king of the fairies, has an argument with Titania. They're fighting over a changeling boy, and there's all kinds of mix-ups. And at the end, it has a very happy ending. I guess it's one of Shakespeare's most happy endings, and where they give a play in the palace, and everybody sings and dances, and Puck says farewell, and at the end, and it's just a delightful story. You shouldn't be afraid of Shakespeare.
No.
Reading this is pure delight.
Mm-hmm.
and seeing movies of it too. There's an old movie that is in black and white, and the most delightful Puck you ever want to see is played by Mickey Rooney, believe it or not.
I know, I saw that.
Just adorable, with beautiful music by Mendelssohn. It's a pure delight.
Yeah. Well, I can't say enough about the artwork in these books, and
thank you.
I threw a couple of things in the chat room, and got a couple of oohs and ahs and delightful and stunning and all these good words. So, if anybody's interested in fairy tales, I mean, it's such a graphically wonderful book. Just looking at the pictures, bring back I even forgive the witch from Hansel and Gretel, even though she's old and has horns. I'm kidding. She was yeah, we know. But yeah, I mean, it's such an enjoyable book. I thought, well, fairy tales and the colors, like, okay, not my favorite picture. I don't have a favorite picture, but the King Arthur one.
Yes.
Merlin. It is such a gorgeous kind of a burnt orange or something. Basically, it's a beautiful color. It just catches your eye right away. And all of them, I mean, and each one is different to the tale that it tells. I mean, way different types. So.
And I do also enjoy painting animals and sort of personifying them in a way. Yep. And one of the Aesop fable, the City Mouse and the Country Mouse, where they're having a little picnic together with cakes and a little teapot, and the Country Mouse has a little straw hat on, and the City Mouse has little glasses and a bow tie, and I enjoy doing that type of thing also, with personifying animals sort of in a Beatrix Potter-ish way.
Yes, well, you have a really good way of doing that, because they're just wonderful. I can't say any more like that. But anyway, we have to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about the Inspirational Visions Oracle deck. And as time allows, Judy will pull a card from the deck for anybody in the chat room that might want one, again, as time allows. But look forward to that. So everybody stay tuned, and we'll be back in 2 minutes.
Stirring the Cauldron will be right back, so don't go away. If you end up with webbed feet, remember, you've been warned.
Hey everyone, it's Marla. If you like tonight's episode of Stirring the Cauldron and the archive podcast as well, take a look at the show's YouTube channel and check out the dozens of shows that are there just waiting to be heard. New shows are added each week, and while you're there, why not subscribe? It's free. And if you click on that tiny little bell icon at the top of the page, you'll be notified when new shows are available. Just go to youtube.com and then type in Stirring the Cauldron Para X and the link will appear. Just like magic.
For almost 2 decades, Midnight Syndicate has composed the soundtrack to your darkest nightmares. The imaginations of fans worldwide have been fueled by its gothic, horror, and fantasy symphonic albums. A staple of the haunted house and amusement park industry, for many, the music of Midnight Syndicate is the music of Halloween. Now, Midnight Syndicate will bring your nightmares to life in a spectacle of sound from beyond the grave.
Welcome back to Stirring the Cauldron. Once again, here's your host, Marla Brooks.
Yeah, welcome back. My guest tonight is Judy Mastrangelo, and before the break, we were talking about her book, Enchanted Fairy Tales, and now we're going to switch gears into her latest oracle deck called Inspirational Visions. But before we do, there's a question from the chat room. They want to know, do you have any influences by Hans Christian Andersen?
Oh, yes. One of my favorite stories that he wrote was Thumbelina, and I use that in my Enchanted Fairy Tales. I use several pictures from that story with you see her in the flower where she first appears. She's born in a flower because her mother doesn't, looks for how to get a child, and she's given a magic seed. And anyway, she grows in a flower, then she gets kidnapped by a frog, and I show her, in the leaves, and also being protected by Mrs. Mouse, and at the very end, where she meets a handsome prince in fairyland, and she finally is among her own kind in the world of fairies. That's one of my favorite. Yeah,
I was looking at that too, and it's really good. All right, we better get to the deck, though. All right, so I love your deck for a number of reasons. First of all, the artwork on the cards themselves are really stunning. But I also, and this you probably didn't have a whole lot to do with, but I adore the clever box the cards came in.
Yes, definitely.
And that alone makes me want to do another deck with Red Feather, just to get a nice box.
Yeah,
and
that wasn't my idea at all. I was completely surprised and delighted. It's like a volume, a thick volume book, and it's so well packed. It's beautiful.
It took me a minute to figure out how to open it. I will admit that. But it's really nice. I just, my deck just is just a plain old square box, a little magnet. Yours is very cool. And then they added that blue shimmer all on the sides of the card, each card. Yeah. So it really blends in with the color scheme of, some of the pictures and everything. That was really nicely done. So, yeah, they did a really good job. So that right there of itself. But I think we should talk a little bit about oracle decks to begin with, because they're completely different than tarot. We know this. And generally, each oracle deck is different than any other. For example, yours is an inspirational deck, and there are very different themes running throughout it. It's a 50-card deck, and it incorporates themes like fantasy and spirituality, mythology, and way more, whereas something like my deck is a witch's deck. You know, it has a witchy theme, and that's it. So talk a little bit about it. Where did the inspiration for this particular deck come from?
Well, it's this. I just want to first mention that I've done several the artwork for other oracle card decks for U.S. Games and Hay House. This is the first one I've done for Red Feather, Mind, Body, Spirit, and it's also the first time I've done the text for it too, which was something very exciting for me because I could direct the whole thing, and I felt that it was something not specifically an oracle deck of telling the future, but something where you can develop yourself, something for inspiration and to change your world. Think of what you want to become, and think of, as I mentioned before, you make a mind painting of yourself, your ideal self, and you can become that way. And also things such as wanting to become close to nature, be part of nature, sense the beauty and the aliveness of nature. And there's certain messages that the cards give, such as understand messages given to you in dreams. Dreams are very important, and try to remember your dreams, and it's your unconscious mind trying to talk to you. And then have courage, be encouraged to stand up for your convictions, and take time to dream on the flowers. Listen to your inspirational spiritual teachers, such as Merlin and Arthur. And then don't despair, even though life might be sad. And I'm always trying to cheer people up, make them more joyful, and stand up tall, feel your power, and have the courage to face the evil giants in the world. And if you're strong and honest, you will fulfill your quest. And also to remain friends with your childhood fantasies, and they will keep you young. So there's some of the thoughts I put forth. And as I said, it's not specifically to tell the future, but to make your future, to make your own future, and become strong, and just get better and better, become better and better, and also to enjoy the excitement and happiness of life and not be afraid.
And, you know, inspiration is probably in short thing. We can't get much these days, you know, short supply. And so something like this, and it's, again, like with a tarot deck, you know, you do certain draws and certain cards and certain patterns. But with an oracle deck, I always say it's so much easier, because if you just pull one card, that's all you need to do. The message is there, and I believe that whatever card you pulled was meant for you at that moment. Right,
absolutely, yes. It's like when you have a book in front of you, it doesn't matter what book it is, but you just open the book to a certain page, and I think you're directing yourself to open up to a page which, when you read it, it can be very inspirational. It's just yourself directing you to learn something, and it's not something that could be something that someone's trying to teach you, or just something that you've known all along that's deep inside of you.
Yeah, and that's really it's important to open up to. Hang on a minute, I was just looking at something. There's just so much going on in these cards, and one message that you get it will resonate. I mean, I'm a believer about that. When I do my once a week cards, and I do a card pull and put it on my website for everybody, and people are always saying, well, how do I know that that reading is for me? And the simple way is, if you didn't see it, it probably wouldn't have been, but you did notice it and you read it. So, obviously it probably had something to do, and the same with these. And, the other thing that is really good about the deck is that there's a saying on each card that you draw that gives you kind of an idea about what the card meaning is. And then in the booklet, it goes into greater detail. Like earlier today, I pulled a card, and it was the Paradise of Children. And on the card, it said, "Imagine your dream world." And that in itself is a really good message. But then I went and looked in the booklet, because obviously you have a booklet because there are things in there. It's not just what you're reading on the card. And then in the booklet, it talked about the Greek myth of Pandora, and then explains that if you want to escape the everyday world, you can just visit your own imaginary paradise and make your everyday world into a paradise. So, it's like double messages. First, just, okay, here's basically what you're seeing, but then it gets better and better.
Right, absolutely.
Was it your idea to write on the cards? Because see, in tarot, a lot of people, sometimes they'll get a beginner's deck that kind of says what each card is. And in tarot, it kind of helps, but then it doesn't help, because then you're not looking at the artwork and stuff. But in this, it's just a little tease so you can get into the book and get the whole picture. Was that your idea?
Well, it just came out that way. I'm sure other people have done the same. I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's possible. I just haven't seen an oracle deck that's done that. And, you were just talking about opening a book. Sorry, I'm going back because I'm looking at the chat room. And MJ said he knows people that read the Bible that way. They'll just open up to a random passage, and he does that. And, there is a form of divination called bibliomancy. And it's the same thing. You grab any book off your shelf and you open it to a certain page kind of with your eyes closed, and you put your finger on that page, and then when you wake up, when you open your eyes, then that paragraph or that sentence is supposed to draw you in.
Right.
So
right.
Again, so much, it's got magic,
Right. And it's hard to know whether it's from you or from your guiding spirits or from above or below, anywhere. Who knows? But if it's helpful, that's the important thing, to find out if it's helpful.
Yeah, I kind of hate to get one from below, but if I did, I would know I deserved
well,
it.
Stay away from it. You can know the thing is to know if something is a bad influence, so intuitively to stand away from it.
Yeah,
stay
we
away
use
from
common
it. And
sense.
building intuition is a very important thing.
It is important, and intuition is a lot of people don't use it.
Right.
And that's kind of scary. It's one of those gifts that we have that sometimes we overlook, or we don't realize we have it, or we don't trust ourselves to trust the intuition or something. And what I think would be really nice is if people have the deck to test their intuition. Draw a card, but block off the bottom, where it says what it is, and look at it and see what you see in there. See what that card is telling you. And, don't take it at face value. It's just, it's a fairy, look very carefully, because that's the thing. Like with my deck, it's one object for each card. There's a wand, there's all kinds of things, but it's only one thing. But with a good tarot deck and a good deck like yours, you've got the little nuances for people to look at. And some of those little animals or some of those little knickknacks that you have in there are very germane to the message of the card, right?
Absolutely, sure.
Yeah. So I think if people want to test themselves, do that, because there's so many little things. I mean, you can really stare at that card for a long time and see things that you didn't see at first glance. And I think that makes it really nice. All right, so guys in the chat room, if you want Judy to pull a card for you, wave at me or put a note in private message or something, and she'll pull a card out at random and give you the tale that it tells. And there's going to be like a 30-second delay. So why don't you pull one, just a general card, and then oh wait, we got one. Okay, Ceiling Cat. Pull a card for Ceiling Cat. She's actually waving.
Okay. Hello. Okay. The one I pulled is actually an illustration from the Tempest by Shakespeare, and it has Ariel talking to Prince Ferdinand, and it's called "Listen to the Spirits, Be Sensitive to the Beings that Surround You," and it says your guardian spirits watch over you. They live both within your soul and all around you, often confiding secret knowledge of the spheres. Heed their gentle whispers, which might prove very helpful in solving your problems. They also help fill your psyche with magnificent, creative thoughts that will inspire you to greatness.
Okay, that's a good one. All right, Tabby is waving also, so we've got a whole bunch of them waving at us. So
okay, hi
so
Tabby.
It's going to blow us down.
All right, this one is called the Moon Fairy Goddess, and you see a picture of the Moon Fairy sitting on the crescent moon, and it says, "You too are lovely and kind. When you create a mind painting of your ideal self, picture yourself as a great beauty. Aspire to become lovely in mind, body, and soul to the best of your abilities. You will thoroughly enjoy the new you, and so will others." Here's a description of how you can picture and feel yourself transforming. Sit gracefully upon the crescent moon, glowing and glistening in the evening sky. Be attended by fluttering butterflies and sparkling stars. You will then appear as the Moon Fairy Goddess, who's the guardian of magical wishes and secret dreams. Make your sweet secret dreams and wishes become reality.
That's a nice one. Okay, Kat would like one.
Okay. Excalibur. That's Arthur pulling Excalibur from the stone. Be strong and honest, and you will achieve your quest. You too can be king or queen of the realm if you stay resolute and follow your dream. Never swerve from your path to enlightenment. King Arthur achieved greatness because he had the courage to pull the sword Excalibur from the stone. Then he dared to create a spiritual kingdom, and so can you. Believe in yourself, and others will also.
Nice. Okay, Miss Tater Tot. I was looking at it, it's all one word, and I'm like, okay, I got to look harder. Go ahead, sorry.
Share some joy. It's a little girl giving a bouquet of flowers to a bunny rabbit with an apron on. Give a bouquet of cheer. Give a bouquet of cheer, a warm smile, and some kind and caring words. Exchange your hope and dreams. Lend a sympathetic ear. You will receive warm feelings in return of friendship and happiness that will make your life full of joy. The most important thing is not to give monetary wealth. It's the riches in your loving heart that will be the most appreciated by everyone who receives your kindness, and they will thank you by sharing their kindness with you.
I like that. All right, couple more. The Hitman.
The Hitman. Aha. Here's one. It's called Penguin Riding By. I have a penguin dressed up like a princess with a pointy hat riding a horse. And she has a cape on. I guess it's a girl. Laughter lets the sunshine in. Don't forget the great healing power of humor. When you smile and give a chuckle, it creates a wonderful mood deep inside, which permeates throughout your entire mind and body. So try to experience the joy in life. It will make you feel wonderful, youthful, and give you a positive attitude.
Nice. All right. Kathy?
Okay. Well, here's a picture of the Mad Hatter's Tea Party with Alice and the Mad Hatter and March Hare, and they're all at the table. Mad Hatter is actually standing on the table pouring tea with the dormouse sticking his head out of the teapot. And it says, celebrate life every day. Be happy and enjoy the amazing variety and flavors of life. Be whimsical and see the humor and fantasy of existence. Make every day an unbirthday party, except on your birthday, of course. You're never too old to play games of imagining. So let's go. So I'm not reading the whole thing, but you get the idea.
Yeah. No, I like that. And I love that song in the movie, Happy Unbirthday to You.
Right. Right.
Okay. Bruce.
Okay, Bruce, Jack and the Giant. So you see Jack, he's sneaking away while the giant's asleep. He's going to grab a bunch of gold and probably the harp, too. So stand up tall and escape the giants. Be brave and make a change in your life for the better. Escape the negatives that set up roadblocks to your happiness and self-fulfillment. These obstacles make it very difficult to become your ideal that you have mind painted and that you dream of becoming. Picture yourself a hero who can overcome any adversity so that you will be free to become the great person you are.
Mm-hmm. Nice. And Sherry. She would like one.
Hi, Sherry. Guardian Spirit. And you'll see Guardian Spirit as she's looking at two sleeping children in bed. Protector of your soul. There is a celestial being who is always by your side to watch over you. You may not know they are there, but understand that they are faithful to you always. Reach out to this higher power who is your advocate in life. They lovingly bring you heavenly dreams of sublime worlds to give you inspiration, hope, and happiness.
See, I mean, these are really good messages, and they're not, some inspirational decks are very heavy. And it kind of puts you on a downer in a way, but like Kathy said, she loved her whimsical reading, there's just so much to them, and they're not all just kind of pedantic and dogmatic and sticking things in your head. I mean, it's good advice, it's easily given, it's written well, and it makes you smile. So, I mean, what more could you ask for, right?
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've just got like 3 or 4 minutes. So I want to have you talk about maybe what projects you're working on in the future and where people can find you and your books and your decks and prints. I mean, people can hang your stuff up on their walls. So yes. I'll leave it to you.
Okay. Well, to find me, my website is easy, judymastrangelo.com, mastrangelo.com. And you could find me on Instagram, Mastrangelo Art, and Twitter at Mastrangelo Art, and I'm on Pinterest And I also have a Redbubble store. Go to redbubble.com and look up my name, and you'll find all kinds of products with my artwork, home decor, even masks and stationery, greeting cards, all kinds of things. And right now I'm working on a book, which is an original fairy tale that I wrote, and it's going to be published by TSL Publications that publish my Enchanted Fairy Tales. And I have several other books that I've published, but I have a lot of art. I have a licensing agency, and they license my work for different things, and including a lot of art prints from several companies. They publish most of my artwork, and you can buy them any size, and you can just Google my name or look on my website and my art gallery, and you'll see all kinds of prints and companies that you can buy prints from. And my shop page has just been redone for the holidays, so I want to wish everybody a happy holiday.
Yes.
And I also do murals that for a company called Magic Murals, and you can buy a wall covering that will cover an entire wall, and it's
Wow.
when you go to bed, or when your child goes to bed, they can just dream by going inside this vision that I've created, including nursery rhyme art, such as Little Boy Blue and all kinds of Mother Goose rhymes and things that will bring you back to childhood, and that your children will appreciate also.
Yeah, so all that information is on your basic website, so people can get it, and then they can branch off. Okay, great.
Yes,
well,
definitely.
we've got to run, so thank you so much for doing the readings and sharing the fairy tales, and I can't say enough good about them. So I really appreciate you coming in.
Thank you so much, Marla. Thank you so much, and I wish you the best of luck with all your wonderful books and card decks.
Oh, thank you. And when you get your next thing done, come on back, and we'll talk about it some more.
Well, thank you so much, and wishing everybody happy holidays, and stay well and safe, everybody.
Yes, thank you. And thank you all for listening in tonight. And until next time, everybody, blessed be.
The circle be open, but unbroken. May the peace of the goddess be ever in your heart. Merry meet and merry part, and merry meet again. Merry meet again. Merry meet again.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Stirring the Cauldron with Marla Brooks. Please join us again next week at the same time for another great guest and more cauldron stirring. Any rebroadcast or other use of this program without explicit permission is strictly prohibited.